Good afternoon and welcome to the first Hawkeye Parent and Family webinar of 2018. My name is Lisa Kelly and I work in the Office of Academic Support and Retention, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. If you're unfamiliar with our webinars, they're hosted on the first Friday of each month from noon to 1 p.m. We hope that each one provides you with up-to-date information that may apply to your students' transition to the University of Iowa. We know that parent and family members play a vital role in student success. We hope that these webinars provide a platform for us to provide you with resources that help you support your students in their success. If you can't attend every live webinar, we do record and post them later on our YouTube page. For more information, future topics, or to sign up for webinars, please visit parents.uiowa.edu. Each webinar has a short presentation and then a question and answer portion where you can get your questions answered by our campus experts. Today's webinar is Proactive Planning for Next Year. We are very lucky to have two wonderful campus partners here with us today. Maureen Schaefer is the Senior Associate Director in the Academic Advising Center. Virginia Ibrahim Olin is the Assistant Director of Assignments and Contracts in University Housing and Dining. They will share information that will help you and your students make important plans for registration and on or off-campus housing for the next academic year. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Maureen to start.
I'm going to jump in. Sorry, I'm Lisa. I'm also with the staff. We're having a few difficulties, it looks like, with the screen. So if we can just hold on while I try to figure out what's going on.
All right, I think we're back and I think we're working again.
We think we got it. We're so sorry.
Right, so now we'll turn it over to Maureen.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be with you today. I'm from the Academic Advising Center and want to give you some information about the next steps for your students' academic planning for next year. So we're in week 3 of the spring semester, and it sure won't be long before we start to think about planning for next year. So I want to share a few things related to next steps regarding academics. So students are advised in different locations around campus, but very soon at the Academic Advising Center, we'll send out our email invitation to students to let them know it's time for a spring planning appointment. These are the appointments where they touch base about their current classes, discuss their major and their exploration process. They go over the degree audit and start brainstorming classes and doing some long-term planning for next year and the year beyond. Now, this process is a little bit different depending on the student. We find that students are in some varying situations this time of year. Some are still in the major they started with and are continuing to plan with their advisor about that degree program and perhaps what they might add to that major, in perhaps a certificate or a minor. And at this point, they might be writing out their plans on a multi-semester planning sheet so they have a sense for what the next 3 years will look like. Other students may have found after the fall semester that they're not so sure about their original major and they want to discuss other options. These students sometimes feel bad about this or see it as a sign of failure, but we let them know that this is a natural part of what happens in college as they learn more about themselves and the various disciplines offered at the university. Now, there's also a group of open majors or other exploring students who are still in the midst of figuring out what they want to do. Some of these students did some exploration in the fall, but not all. Some students weren't sure on a major in the fall, but really weren't worried about it either. We aren't in a position to hurry them, but we do share that as they start to plan classes for the fall of their sophomore year, that they may find that it'll be easier if they know what they want to explore in a more specific way. So now is the time for all of these students to start planning for fall. And many students have the same advisor from fall, but some students who had transfer credit, either from dual enrollment in high school or AP work, they may have switched their advising location to a departmental advisor. So we have a two-tiered system of advising at the university, which starts with most students being advised at the advising center. But at a certain point, students do move on to advising in their major, either by an advisor who's in a primary advising role or a faculty member. So as you can see here on the screen, there's just a screenshot of the student's MyUI account, and they can check this to see where their current location is, current advising location, and they schedule appointments with their advisor using the online scheduler here. If they have more than one major, it could be that they have more than one advisor as well. We view academic advising as an important process so we can help students to discuss their options at Iowa and make informed choices about their education. Through this process, we guide them, and we're also teaching them how to navigate the university and start to take charge of their process. So part of that process certainly is understanding their degree audit, and the degree audit's the official record of their progress towards the degree. We consult the audit in advising appointments, but students have access to this document at any time through their MyUI account. Conversations we have with students in the spring oftentimes relate to exploration, as I mentioned. If students are still trying to figure out what program of study is best for them, we'll talk about the various ways that they can explore the options at the university. If they know their major, they may now be considering minors or certificate programs that they can pursue with their elective hours. So we'll talk with them about the various ways they can explore, most often using the Career Center website and the Academic Advising Center website. So let's talk a little bit about the timeline for registration. Summer registration for students planning to take courses at Iowa this summer is the week of March 5th. Right around the corner. Summer classes are on MyUI now, and students can start having conversations with their advisor about those plans. If your student is thinking about using the Summer Hawk tuition grant, please note that eligible students will be sent information about this very soon by email. This is the last summer that the Summer Hawk tuition grant will be available, so students should talk to their advisor soon if they're considering using it. And for parents, there's more information that you can consult on the Advising Center website. Fall registration begins on April 9th and will run for 2 weeks through April 20th. Students advised at the Academic Advising Center need to see their advisor in person in order to be authorized for registration for summer and fall. Some students plan to take a summer class at a school near their home this summer. During advising appointments, we'll talk with students about how to find out how classes from other schools transfer to Iowa. Summer can also be a good time for students to continue their major in career exploration. This is something they can discuss with their advisor and with you. There might be options in your community for them to do some volunteering or even job shadowing or an internship experience to explore different fields. The last thing that I want to mention is that the academic transition to college is still underway in the spring semester. Some students did really well in the fall and are happy with their grades, and some may have struggled a bit, but no matter what happened in the fall, they have a new set of classes this spring with new expectations, and the academic adjustment continues. It can be helpful for you as parents to convey what we convey to your students, that the most successful students don't do it alone. They get support when needed, they talk with their professors and their advisors, and if these aren't habits that your student developed in the fall, it can be a great goal for the spring. On their MyUI account, they see a link for academic support, and this takes them to the Tutor Iowa website, which is the best source for all academic resource information at Iowa. They even have information on quiet study spaces and academic tips worksheets, such as how to talk with your professor. I think this is a good thing to mention because we want students to know that the adjustment continues. We don't expect them to have it all figured out yet. So we look forward to talking with your students this spring and helping them plan their next steps. Advising is one of those things that you get more out of it the more you put into it. So we appreciate your help in encouraging your students to come see us. Now I'll turn it back over to Lisa.
All right, thank you, Maureen. And now we have Virginia to talk about on and off campus housing.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Virginia Ibrahim Olin, and I work with our contracts and assignments team for University Housing and Dining. And what I would like to share with you all is that first and foremost, Students can live on campus for multiple years. That has been a misnomer that we are trying to help every family be aware of, that students are able to return. If they have already made plans to live off campus, that's not a problem. They can dine on campus with a meal plan. And then also too, students are able to work and lead when they are on staff with University Housing and Dining. We employ more than 1,400 student employees, and it is some great career readiness, skill development that occurs when they work for us. This afternoon, I'll provide you with a brief overview about reasons to return, what our process looks like, and the many options for students to explore. So, University Housing and Dining provides everything your student needs. We offer great locations, as many of you are aware. We have a fully furnished room. We provide options for dining across campus, leadership opportunities, student and professional support, because sometimes your student might need a fellow student's opinion, for example, like with roommate relationships or conflicts that they may be working through. And occasionally they need professional support if they are truly struggling with their behavioral choices or some academic needs. We also offer emergency response. We have a facilities team that is on call 24 hours a day if the unforeseen may occur. And then we also have embedded counselors who work in our residence halls that your student may utilize if they are experiencing a crisis. Students should imagine the possibilities. We have some single, double, triple, quad, suite, and apartment style room types. Many students are not aware that we have all of these options available to them in both single or mixed gender communities, depending on what they're looking for. Our residence halls feature fitness centers, computer labs, and convenience stores all on site. So they can walk on downstairs in their pajamas or just a short stint through a tunnel or across the street to get something that they might need early in the morning or late at night, depending on their schedule. Additionally, we hosted returning Hawkeye Hall tours last week, and more than 300 students took advantage and popped around campus to see all the nifty amenities that are available within our residence halls, which we think was quite successful. We know that living on campus is the best deal, and there is no promo code necessary for them to live with us. We offer an all-inclusive rate, which I'll be sharing with you what our proposed rates are for next year. We include every utility, so there's no splitting with friends, electricity, heat, water, cable, internet, all the little things that your student may not consider if they are preparing to live off campus. And so it's a good transitional environment. It's paid through their university bill. We offer a 9-month contract, which is great because if they are not taking advantage of summer courses or will not be in Iowa City, then we don't want them to have to pay for housing if they're not going to use it. And very conveniently, we offer releases if your student may be graduating, studying abroad, or participating in a co-op or an internship outside of Johnson County and only needs housing for one semester or another, as opposed to trying to find a subletter and manage someone taking over their lease. Up on the screen, you'll see what our anticipated costs are for next academic year, and this would be either a double room in a traditional style hall in Mayflower or in Peterson and Catlett, which are our 2 new buildings. And so all inclusive, we are looking at approximately $10,200, almost $300 for sharing a room with someone, or $12,000 if they would have a single room. In Mayflower, it's the same exact rate if they were to have a single room. And one tip that I can share with you all is that if they were to live in Mayflower in a single, they have their own kitchen and bathroom that they would share with another student. So actually that could decrease quite significantly because they could drop their meal plan. Returning students have that special option to them. And then if they wanted to have a single room in either Peterson or Catlett, you can also see what those rates are at $13,317. These have been proposed to the Board of Regents and we'll have them finalized in May. Students have the option to live with their squad all year long. We offer roommate matching for returning students, and that will remain open through the weekend. We have gender inclusive roommate pairs for students, which is wonderful for siblings that might want to live together. We have a few of those, and we have friends who would like to become roommates. Students also have the option new for this year to request their neighbors and do a group assignment. And we have so far more than 20 different groups of students have requested to live on a floor together, which was great. And then we always have students who just fly solo and try to make new friends on the floor. And that can be an excellent opportunity if your student is looking for a new circle of friends as they're here on campus. For students to continue the success that they've started, we have halls with communities of returning students available in Burge, Catlett, Courier, Hillcrest, Mayflower, Stanley, and Peterson. We have designated floors specifically for returning students to live amongst others who have elected to return to the residence halls, and we know that that's great. Oftentimes we'll hear from our students, I don't exactly want to be with the first year students, and that's no problem. We know about 20% of students tend to return to the halls from one year to the next. We have over 1,100 students that will be living with us next year in an upper class capacity, and so we have space for them. And we do have living learning communities that will accept returning students. I would like to highlight one specifically, and that's our Creative Matters LLC, which will be new for next academic year and is specifically designed for upper class students who will be in either the STEAM field, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. If your student may be a creative writing major or looking at something with the visual arts or the performance arts, but then also is interested in connecting with students who may be an engineer, this is a great community for them to explore and do project-based work together. It's brand new. It will be in Catlett Hall, so they will enjoy all those brand new amenities and some fabulous views of the river. So the timeline to return. In November, we opened our online application, and you can see February 1st, yesterday, was the deadline for students to reapply. However, it is not too late. They still have the option to log in and reapply, and if they do so now, they'll be able to participate in online room selection. Group requests, we did have those due with a deadline of yesterday, because next week they will pick their group assignments. On February 8th, your student will be emailed their time slot to log in online and select a room, and their online selection will take place from February 12th through 15th. If your student has an ADA or a medical accommodation, that documentation is due by February 15th. And then February 19th is when they officially receive their contract notification that becomes legally binding on February 26th. So overall, there is still time to participate in online room selection. We will leave roommate matching open until February 5th, and students are not legally bound to anything until the end of February, which gives you all as a family some time to explore options and understand a little bit more. If your student would like to participate in online room selection, their time slot is determined based on how long they have lived with us on campus. Confirmed roommate pairs will be assigned by the first roommate who logs in to pick a room. Single rooms will be available across campus. We have made many more single rooms available to returning students, which is great. We know that that's what they're interested in living in, and so we've tried to open them in as many buildings as possible. And we also will have gender inclusive housing available in all of our communities. And on screen, you can see our Mayflower tradition at homecoming, where they spell out Iowa and enjoy some hot cocoa as they look at the view across the street. It's fabulous. So if your student is currently receiving ADA accommodations because they have an ongoing medical concern, we want them to reapply and confirm their needs for next year. If your student has a new concern that our office may not have been supporting them with, what they'll have to do is check the box in their online application, submit a reasonable request for accommodations by February 15th, and then our staff will support your student with their room selection one-on-one. It's a pretty easy process. We just need to know that they might need this medical accommodation. And a few recommendations that we would like to offer for your student. Number one is allow them to complete the process themselves. This is about them learning how to navigate the university. As Maureen talked about earlier, they're doing that on the academic side. They can learn that to do that on the housing side as well. Encourage multiple options. They have the ability to live all across campus, and there may be several different halls that could be a wonderful fit for them. If they're for some reason not able to get into the hall that they're interested in living in during online selection, have them talk to our office. We would be more than happy to help. I ask that you all share your expectations for the family budget and whether or not you expect them to live on or off campus. It's up to each family to decide what works best for them, but it's also important that your student knows what you expect. We encourage you to ask guiding questions and then also encourage reflection about roommate relationships. We know that many of our students this year is the first time that they have ever lived with someone else. And so it's important to talk with them about what has worked well, what might they want to do differently, and then how can they communicate expectations with their roommates, whether they're living on campus or off. And so lastly, again, we are here to help. Within University Housing and Dining, our offices are open from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Student walk-ins are always welcome, and we encourage them to come on in between 8:30 and 4:30, so that way we have staff here and that they have enough time to address whatever their concern is. If you happen to be emailing because you're curious about something, we want you to copy your student on that email and always include their full name and university ID in all communication. And we have a great website with all of this information put together at housing.uiowa.edu/return. If you've got questions, type them away to us and I'll answer those briefly. Our dear friend Eric, who supports students with off-campus housing, is not available, but I'd like to talk with you all briefly about some options. First of all, the university has put together a brand new website called offcampus.uiowa.edu, and this website is a great resource for students to browse available properties, to advertise sublets, and to find a roommate. We also will be offering an off-campus housing fair. One was offered in the fall, and we'll have one in the spring that will be coming up just shortly on the 14th down at the IMU. And so your student can come down and peruse options that may be still available off-campus and talk with landlords. Additionally, we have student legal services, and I cannot stress the importance of utilizing this resource enough. Before your student commits to any housing for the upcoming year, we encourage them and you all to explore the rental guide that Student Legal Services has put together. They have so many wonderful resources about renting and entering into a tenant-landlord relationship. We know that this is the first time that many students will become a renter, and it's important that they go into it knowing what their options are ahead of time, and because once they sign on the dotted line, they will be locked into a legal agreement, and Student Legal Services can offer support upfront, which is better than after issues have come up.
All right. Thank you so much, Maureen and Virginia, for all the great helpful information on registration and housing. We'll now move on to the question and answer portion of our webinar. Please keep in mind that our presenters are unable to answer questions about specifics on your student's experience, but they can provide information that may be helpful in guiding your student. If you have a question, type it into the question box on the side. We'll then read the question so all participants can hear, and then our folks will answer the question. If you are unable to get your questions answered during the webinar, we will follow up with you via email. So we'll just pause 1 second and see if we have questions.
Hi, Judy. Thank you so much for your question. And that is, once a a housing contract is signed, what's the cut? And I am assuming that you are meaning what's the cutoff date. So first and foremost, I want to make sure that everyone knows that we have enough housing to support all students who are interested in returning to the residence halls. They will be able to live across campus in a variety of buildings. And so if your student is interested, have them apply. Applying does not commit them to living with us. Once they select a room, approximately 7 days after they select a room, once they select a room, we will email them their housing contract, and they will have 7 days to be able to determine, yes, I will live with you, or no, I will not. And after that 7-day point, then their contract becomes legally binding. And so for our students for this academic year, I can review what those dates will be. Returning students will be emailed their official contract on February 19th, and then it becomes legally binding on February 26th.
So is there, I think what she was asking maybe too is there, once that's passed, is there any options for getting out of it if something changes over the summer, let's say?
Sure. So if their student status changes, they are no longer attending the university, they're participating in a study abroad program, they may be taking advantage of a great internship outside of Johnson County, then we would release a student from their housing contract after February 26th. However, if a student decides after February 26th, I think I might want to go live off campus, they would still be bound to their housing contract with University Housing and Dining. And so it's very important for them to be aware of that. Now, I can see another question about housing and dining coming through that indicates, say your student is living off campus, can they eat in university dining without a meal plan? And the answer is yes. There are 2 different ways that they could eat with us. Number one is that they could choose to pay the walk-in price, and they would pay with a credit card or a debit card. We don't accept cash. We try to be cashless, which is helpful. Or they could choose to charge that meal to their university bill, which is very handy. I recommend talking to your student. If you think that they might be eating on a regular basis with us, it could be convenient for them to purchase the Hawkeye plan, which is 75 meals for the course of a semester. And that really works out to being, lunch or dinner kind of every day during the week. That's very convenient. If the other option would be for them to purchase a Herky Booster Pack, which is 25 meals. And that is the one meal plan. The Herky Booster Pack would roll over from one semester to the next. So thank you. Very good question about dining in the marketplaces.
Okay. I'll answer in a second. One question is, my student is an open major and they're going to be a sophomore. Does that mean they're behind in choosing majors, or should I push them a little bit?
That is a great question, and it is hard to answer. And the reason it's hard to answer because it really depends on the major they end up being in. If someone's an open major today and they decide in a month to be a nursing major, yes, they are behind. If someone is an open major today and they decide to be an English major or psychology major, absolutely not. They're not behind. So these are some of the important things that students and advisors will talk about in long-term planning. And we usually start with kind of the big areas, big theme areas that students are interested in to start to kind of rule out some areas. Usually students can tell me, I know I won't do anything in the natural sciences or the social sciences or healthcare related, and we start to narrow things down. But we definitely incorporate the time frame of various majors into our conversations to talk about the length of time for completing, because there really are majors on campus that are sequential enough that it would be difficult to or impossible to graduate in 4 years if they decided in their sophomore year to start something like that. So because there are just so many variables there, I would encourage a student to just have a conversation with their advisor about that. But time is definitely something we incorporate into our conversations.
Okay. There's another question. I'm going to kind of summarize it. Basically, we have this new website for off-campus housing, and the question is, like, It's a new website. How up to date is it? How good is it? Are students actually using it? Do you have any sense of that?
Sure. So I'm going to try to respond on behalf of Eric. We have had an off-campus housing website for a number of years. What we have done is incorporated that into a new university resource to provide students with more information about the off-campus housing search. So we are seeing that students are still using this website as a helpful resource to be able to find fellow students interested in living with another student. So it's highly utilized. We're just providing them with more educational resources. And so that's why it may feel new to them. And the routing addresses are new, but they both go to the same place ultimately. So that was a really great question. I recommend that they do use the Iowa off-campus housing site because it is the one that is affiliated with the university. There is other locations that students may find roommates through social media or through Craigslist, but those are not always as reliable as this site. And so this is the landing point where I would direct your student to begin.
How or when do off-campus students purchase meal plans?
Sure. So off-campus students are able to purchase meal plans through the university dining website, and those become available in August. So there is no rush for them to try to decide, do we need a meal plan or don't we need a meal plan for next academic year? I would have that conversation once they've got their housing all squared away and have an idea of their schedule, incorporating work and internships into that. Then you could determine, great, if they're going to dine on campus, then let's get them going and purchase that meal plan in August. And we allow all students to make adjustments to their meal plans within the first 3 weeks of the academic semester. And so another question has come in about the off-campus website, and I can review that for you all. It is offcampus.uiowa.edu is the website where students can go to get information about living off campus. One more time, that is offcampus.uiowa.edu.
Let's see. The Career Center was mentioned briefly. Is this another place where students can get major advice, or is this just for career advice?
That's a great question. The Career Center is an office that the Academic Advising Center works with very closely because it's nearly impossible to tease both of those conversations apart. We end up talking about careers, they end up talking about majors, and so for students who are exploring at this time, I absolutely would encourage them to use both resources. And academic advisors will often make referrals. I talked to a friend of mine in the Career Center the other day who said, wow, we've had so many referrals from your office and students coming here taking career assessments, so it's a great way to start out the spring semester. So this is definitely the time of year where students are meeting with their advisor, and then they're also, after that, going to talk with someone in the Career Center. And I think that for both of us to do our jobs really well, in order to serve the students best, we really have to talk holistically. Sometimes it's hard to just talk about major without talking about what you're going to do with it. And for the Career Center folks, it's probably nearly impossible for them to just talk about career without talking about what major will help prepare you. So we view our work very much in collaboration with that office. And thankfully, we're just one floor apart, so both of us can refer students in the right direction.
Great. You all had a good amount of questions. So I'm just going to give it just another second to see if any other questions are out there before we close out. So if you have a question, now's the time to type. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in right now. So thank you again to Maureen and Virginia for joining us today. If you do end up having questions or you want to revisit anything on this webinar, the webinars will be posted on our Academic Support and Retention YouTube page. And additional questions can be sent to uc-retention@uiowa.edu. and you'll get a response from a University of Iowa staff member. Please join us for our next webinar in 2018, Academic Support Resources, on March 2nd from noon to 1 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us today on Iowa Go Hawks!